most complex part, in my opinion. So it should get more accessible. But if you have questions, if you have anything you'd like to ask Geshe or myself, please do not hesitate to email me. That is absolutely no problem. And on that, I think that I have replied to everybody who has emailed. I got one email yesterday, which I have yet to reply to, but everyone else should have gotten a response from me. So if for some reason you did not get a response, please let me know. Then, just in the last 2 minutes before we start, in terms of Geshe-la's Sunday teachings, so there's going to be after this one 2 more stages of meditation. The first Sunday in September is a stat holiday here. It's Labor Day. So that will be off, and it's often a time where people are getting their kids ready to go back to school and stuff, so it seemed a good time to take a week off. Following that is going to be the 2-day meditation retreat. I want to give accurate dates for this because I realize that. So yeah, so the 6th will be off, and then the 12th and the 13th is this 2-day mini meditation retreat that we're going to try to roll out. So this will have Geshe-la sort of giving a brief introduction, 10 to 15 minutes, and for the balance of the session, giving meditative prompts. So we're going to try this out and see how people react to it. And then in the afternoon, I think one day I'll be helping out, one day Dave will be helping out. We'll have kind of like a debrief with everybody, and again, a little bit of meditation with the 2 of us. And then people can get back to us and let us know what they think about this program, if this is something they liked more of, if they have any suggestions, but just to try something a little bit different and shift the mood a little bit in more contemplative rather than philosophical direction. After that, we'll return to Words of My Perfect Teacher by Patrul Rinpoche, and that is kind of the plan going into September, October. So on that note, I will stop nattering for now. I'll invite Geshe-la down. We'll get started in 2 or 3 minutes. Grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea, make yourselves comfortable. So just briefly, another thing I wanted to mention, we usually do have it open in case people want to come in person. This week we said no because we were supposed to be at my parents' place, but the story is the fiber optic network at my parents' place is not working. So Geshe and I Ubered back at about 10 p.m. last night to make sure that we were here to do the class. So he's like, you tell everybody everything. I'll try to be transparent. So on that note, that's why we're here instead of in the different location. Losogi. So can everyone hear Geshe okay? Okay, fantastic. Then we'll proceed. So first of all, Tashidele, greetings to everybody. Geshe hopes all of your activities are going well. All of them are going perfectly. So we know that in terms of the activities we're engaging in, ultimately they're aimed at securing our own perfect welfare and also at working towards helping others secure their perfect welfare. So these activities are really two-pronged, aimed at the welfare of both self and others. And of course, to achieve these types of welfare, those are results, so we need to accumulate the perfect causes for that. And of course, in order to work towards that, although we don't establish this maybe formally in the motivation, we need a body and mind that are healthy. We need a mind that is peaceful, right? That is important as well. So we don't establish these in the motivation because that's not what we want to emphasize. However, these aspects of our well-being are a part of what we establish at working towards, even if they're not the main aim. So as people approach the Buddha Dharma, right, we could say beginners of the Buddha Dharma, their study and practice of the teachings, initially, right, it might come from a recognition that it's outer things, external circumstances are not making me happy and peaceful. What if the causes for my peace and happiness are something that have to be cultivated internally? And then based upon this, they start to cultivate those internal causes for a state of happiness and peace. So this might be initially how someone approaches things. And so this type of study and meditation to cultivate those internal causes of peace, that is something that is open to everybody, right? And using the Buddha Dharma in this way doesn't even necessarily require one to formally be a Buddhist. And so, of course, we can say that these are like aspects of science of the mind, and in terms of general goals, they can bring us a measure of benefit and happiness. And we're not saying that we don't need these things, right? To be very clear, to have as a foundation a healthy body, a happy mind, and so forth. This is going to be very important for us to be able to long-term study and practice effectively. So in this way, right, that temporary happiness, it is an object of attainment. It is a goal, just not the ultimate one.
Shira teze chewa chasuna o ta tene chine masel te ki won rowa yinayo gonzo chilen ro go rowa shiwa shima
Yeah
다 로비칼 페드 맨 로그는 로그 말해. 더 깨깨제도 용구하래.
So as we study and practice, perhaps with this initial motivation, as we become more familiar with the teachings, we'll develop an increasing wisdom. And eventually the question will arise, well, in terms of this peace and happiness of this lifetime, if there are past and future lifetimes, is the happiness of just this lifetime enough? And one begins to start to think about those future lifetimes.
다 페드 맨 로그 요나 할 레벨 로지 자체모도 요래 자체모 깨제대지 싫어 그요 말에 코텐들 렐레이션 되게 알아봤어.
And if it were the case that there weren't future lifetimes, that just sort of, as we pass away from our life, then that's just the end of this story, then there are many aspects of the teachings that one would not need to worry about, because basically you're just trying to keep yourself calm and enjoy yourself as much as possible within that one short life.
다 이나요 다 류도리파 몽보 질라테네 가사야데 세세야데 다 치용비 갈라요 다 코로군다 오질라테네 용기야 팔라요 못하는 라오질은 로게야 지금 내스지요 이자 다 맨로군데스.
However, based upon scripture and based upon reasoning, we know that we call the I or the self, in its resultant aspect, it has to arise from a similar cause. And similarly, it will give rise to a future cause. And when you start to think in this way, younger Śāntarakṣita.
야야 저세 몽보 마친 칠레비 갈라요.
Yep.
아니 코론다 오질라테네 요거 근데 와스.
Yeah, then they
판로비 갈라요 코론다 오질라테네 로그
Right.
말레스.
And because that this instance, this instance of the self or the I has to arise from a similar cause, we also know that the I of the past brought forth the present self, so we can understand it could continue in the future as well.
다 던지질라 다 버게테 시라체르 로그데 다 된다고면데스 안 로그근데 와스 로이가라 오테야 보지에도 가르이나 버스 주바지 그근데스.
So with this wisdom, we then think, okay, the happiness of this lifetime is not enough, because in the future we are going to have to be reborn as well. And then in this way, we have to also practice for future lifetimes, because we need future happiness as well.
가르레세레 소소 요아르 로야긴 데바 요아르마 두른 로야긴 데바 스질이 요마라 와스.
Why? Because of course we want our fortunes to get better and better. Nobody looks at their future and says, oh, I want to experience things going worse in my future, right? Nobody wishes that.
다 대지레 드네 대좀 보드야 될래 요아라 와스 렌데게네스다 디사볼래 요아레스.
And then on this basis, we can secure a favorable basis in terms of rebirth. And of course, this is connected especially to our observation of the law of cause and effect, or karma.
다 델리조 다 버게 온보 노가세나 먼저 리바 요가 초픽 시라 체와 초픽하라. 다 던지지네 거라잔데 데데바긴 다 페토 템보지. 기워 템보지 렌드도 먼저 디네스 될래 요아레스.
So then, as our wisdom increases, we come to an even further question. Okay, even if I take care of the future lifetime, that ultimately doesn't solve the problem of this circling through samsara from lifetime to lifetime with ever-changing forces, right? What if there were a happiness that could be achieved through being emancipated from samsara?
다 기워 템보 메비 쿠바치노 거라자데 노지치레 데도.
It would be like you're living in a house where you're really unhappy and you just keep on moving where your room is, hoping that that is somehow going to improve the situation, right? That's not a long-term solution.
다 던지지 저거 마이사 다 델링이네 타와 강에 땡도 메비가 다 대시지야 지소노지레 요아레스.
So for that reason, then, the wish will come to achieve a true freedom, the freedom of moksha or liberation, a state of happiness that is completely untouched by suffering.
다 디세 텔 가정 것만 가지고 깨자 뭐 것만 잘래서 왔어. 다 나로 지보게 대한다. 시의 대화 탑이 대화 지금 저건도 손비 달로 어떤지 그건도 딘저건도 손비로 지금 다 저거 요아레스.
And so as this starts to come together, then there is this wish to achieve peace, to achieve the peace of liberation, that lasting happiness only for myself, a state of personal moksha or liberation.
어다 예를 돈을 첨부 매서는 문제 된다 예대 싫어 돼야 그때 내가 자 첨부 용기야 말이야.
And that's not to say that one neglects others completely. It's just that in terms of the efforts of the goal that one is working towards, it's not placing the welfare of others as a principal consideration.
다 싫어 최소 다 뭐 노쇼 되게 다 도쟁이네 제게들 가르먹이 가르쳐 봐이나요. 답이 되시지 더 봐이나요. 다 롱대 차수 단단 주면 되스다.
So then, of course, we can say after manifesting this middling wisdom, as we continue to study and practice the teachings, a sharper wisdom will come. And we realize that if I achieve the bliss of liberation just for myself, the perfect welfare of self and others will not be able to come forth in a complete way. So one starts to think about that.
콜 데비깔라 때좀보다 못터네 용기야래라 못터네 용야용야 ngamamondo 사러was 강가 예가리라 때니 다 기워시요나 예가리라 때니 슌데was.
So we know that within samsara, when we have those favorable rebirths, what we call a ten sangpo, a good basis, we know that that is only possible through the causes that we cultivate in relation to others. And we understand that in the bigger picture, of course, every happiness that we achieve in some measure depends on other sentient beings.
다 된다 콜 데비깔라 기부가 대시 체주 간지지나 예가리라 때니 파시 슈데요레스.
We could actually make a very effective argument that as long as we are within samsara, whatever happiness we experience, whether a major happiness or a minor happiness, that is only possible due to the kindness of others.
다 세계 대시 최소 내봐요. 이제 세계 대시 최소 대 좀봐 니지 제발라 소바요. 다 예라 때니 마도로서 만두스.
And we understand that the reason for this, of course, is because that happiness comes from positive causes, and this arises through minds like love, compassion, patience, and so forth, that are only possible to practice, right, hinging on our relationships with others.
다 던지지 이자 파 페다야가 거로프게 또 도야겠다 리븐라고지 요는도 당연히 파 레트게 야드렌디와스.
Again?
야 팔레 여보지 때 야지요 때 토야지 요나
Len Karilin.
야치 여보지 야데 팔레 때 가로
Right.
다 때게 야지렌디와스.
And so then we start to think about how if, right, all of those positive things are happiness, our happiness and so forth are connected to others, then we want to be able to reply to that kindness. In other words, find a way to repay that kindness.
다 드니 쇼지 세미노레스나 만두 다 손지 컴포트야 티그네스 대처를 마시들 레고야레스.
And then this is when the bodhisattva path and working towards the ultimate goal of complete and perfect Buddhahood will start to be a consideration.
다 시라 체쇼 옴보 노쇼 다 대선스 때 대용구야레스.
This is the greatest and sharpest form of wisdom. It is the sharp faculty way of practice.
다 대프가 렘바 동보니 주데 템보지 잡아라 다 실라 니데 순제 메나 하고서라 지죠
Jinlap
다 실라 니데 순제
Jinlap ni tang sunje din so kareres.
실레도 나도 니뇽도
Oh, shilak sunje. Okay. Yeah.
그서라 실라 니데 뇽도 그 돈에 맞잖아. 어도 사태는 만두스.
And in terms of achieving this complete and perfect Buddhahood, it depends upon it depends upon the union of the practices of śamatha and vipaśyanā, right? The practices of calm abiding and special insight. In the absence of these, we will not be able to reach that highest goal.
신의 지보고 경연저와 하고서라 내가 시켜 간저 세계 시행연저와 되지대서 과토 여러 마도 쉬셔고 과토요 말이스.
And also keep in mind that the shamatha or the shine, the calm abiding, that this is able to cease temporary faults of mind, right? As sort of a stopgap measure, but it can't cease them ultimately.
어다 내가 시켜 간가 자원이 파가 고고요나 이 민저 다 하도 되면나 어떠니도 별하도 되면은 저거면 돼.
So if we want to get rid of the faulty types of mind from the very root, eliminate them so that they cannot come back, then we definitely need to cultivate vipaśyanā or special insight, which incorporates a wisdom realizing emptiness. This is very important.
다 대이자 다 신내도 라도 게자 뭐 어찌 다 보게 고 노소나 노라 첨부 요하게 디게자 뭐 보는 건데 왔어.
And because we need to cultivate both calm abiding and special insight, we need a path of meditation that allows us to do that, that is unmistaken. Because if we are mistaken in our meditation, we won't be successful in bringing those forth.
다 들으시래. 늘 다 딩년도 디디지 뭐야.
So this was a brief sort of introduction to those essential points.
다 들으시는 거야.
So we are going to proceed then in a relaxed way. Just let me switch our sound setting. So you let me know after how the sound is. We'll begin the meditation.
You should go back to musician sound off.
Yes, for the meditation. Yes, Dave. Yes, I will. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
자티 추르추르는 칼에 지안도 건데 왔을 때 노지 처음에 배서노도 간가 좀봐 아직도 봐야 와치 손도 그랬어.
So when we hear this sound of the bell, Geshe is saying that just like it starts out loud and gradually becomes less and less powerful and fades completely, this is a very nice metaphor for the traffic, the conceptual thoughts, distractions, and so forth in our mind. They become more and more subdued.
보아노 저 뉴만 괜히 여바지 레레 이잖아다 걸어보게 여와셔도 그래 왔을 때 노지 저거요 손바지.
It's just like placing down a glass of water that has particles swirling within it. As we put it on the table and the particles settle, then we can examine the clear nature of the water.
We host again, co-host. And also, should you ask somebody else to be?
So Dave, your mic is on so we can hear everything.
테네 메메바 마임바 메요바 대용 세 강가 니바 강가치 루루조하게 제도 운중도 세전에 대해서.
And we know that meditation with an object is superior to meditation without an object. So for the purpose of taking a point of focus and gathering our mental energy, our winds away from the sense doors, direct your mindfulness and attention to the rising and falling of your breath.
토와젠다 ndamandra karleva yina chegu ganya chujunuji kotono matena otsineva shiamandus.
And if there's occasionally other thoughts or feelings that are arising you that take you away from the breath, think that these are minnows swimming beneath the surface of a very still lake. They move through the water, but they do not disturb it in any way.
제 노칸 무지 그용바 조만자와 달 쇼알레요 소마치.
And in this way, think that the mind is like the open sky or space. It is unobstructed, pure, and vast.
돈역 세 류마데 세 그용바 자첨보다 다 게일 세또 첨보지 응원을 야시기 소마치.
And think this vastness of the fundamental mind, which is in the nature of equanimity, I want to take it in the direction of a virtuous object so that its vastness becomes imbued with the positive.
로와 슬타와 이나요 로와 용주 예네서 다되데 무시비용기 코알 코데드 어떤 예네서 소소 시바시네 용주 대실 템보치라 저기 소바치.
So think myself and all sentient beings, we continue to wander within samsara because of our lack of wisdom, our lack of knowledge about the ultimate mode of abiding, about the way things really are. So think I myself will develop and will strive to help others develop the wisdom that is able to perceive that ultimate mode of abiding, the way things really are.
용주 강에 그저 차반드지 그동안에 다 자와시 저기 소바치.
So think to free myself and others, I definitely must part them from this all-pervasive or compounded suffering.
세제 간지지나요 대도 자소나 누가 요주도 장조거든 다 간지 여보 어떤 손베톤이 다 니지지.
Think if I am able to separate a sentient being from that all-pervasive suffering, every other type of suffering will cease as well. So bring forth that wish, that compassion.
대다 소만우지 다 소하체지 다가요 소바지.
And in order to be able to achieve this, let us make single-pointed requests to the holy beings. So we'll start with the praise to the Buddha. Tenpa chonden de
Geshe sheba drachomba yondaba zube sonje reba don shasu denpa dewa sheba jide chenpa sheba dewe kalo gyurwa lana meba ladon minangi tenpa sonje choden de bejawa shaja duba la chanse lo cheda shasu jo Tenpa chomden de Teje sheba drachomba yondaba zube sonje reba don shasu denpa dewa sheba jide
Chenpa
Sheba dewe kalo gyurwa lana meba ladon minangi tenpa sonje choden de bejawa shaja duba la chanse lo cheda shasu jo
And we'll do a short mandala. So
Je bejo je me do jo ra li je ne de ge ba do son je jin do me de bu wa
gi
do go non do je la je ba jo yi
dam
go ra na me da
la
ya da ya me
Refuge in Bodhicitta.
Son je je do zo jo jo na la chang che ba de da ni xiao su ji da gi ji je ji be zo na je ro la be son je ro wa jo son je je do zo jo jo na chang che ba de da ni xiao su ji da gi ji be zo na je ro la be son je ro wa jo son je je dong zo je jo nam
la jang shu ba du
da ne sha su jo da gi chi she ji be su nang ji do la be je son je jo wa sho oh ya ta chi koron ne so
you'll notice, right, that within that prayer it says, until I achieve enlightenment, I will go for refuge. And that until enlightenment part is really important. And that's because once we achieve that perfect enlightenment, we don't need to depend on or go for refuge to anybody. We will be able to perfectly accomplish our own welfare and the welfare of others effortlessly. But until then, right, as long as we remain a sentient being, then it is very important to go for refuge to the three jewels in a complete way. And so then understanding too that ultimate destination is something that is very positive, right? We want to strive towards that with happiness, with joy. Yep. So if we think about just the happiness of this life and achieving that, even just one minor thing, this often involves a lot of toil, not something that we would call joyous effort, right? But bits of toil. So then if we're trying to achieve that bliss of liberation, if we're trying to achieve ultimate freedom or liberation, which is such a huge result, then we understand that it is necessary to amass exceptional causes, right? That's very important. And this is just something that is in accord with the reality, right? The causes and results have to fit. It's not such an esoteric thing. And because we want to be able to accumulate those powerful causes, and because our mind doesn't immediately start out in a powerful state, what we want to do is establish that motivation to empower our mind.
어다 롱진즈도 첸디가 샤와데 슈 더보지자 어다 디기쇼로 용메바 고팅도 요아레스.
Because self-cherishing in our mind is so powerful, we are naturally kind of pulled towards putting effort in activities that are related to that minor personal happiness of this life.
어다 던지지자 또 나이는 총총절 또 나시기도 펜비 또 샤데 가 템보는 쳔보지레스.
And that's why we practice things like the 5 powers with the power of the force or propulsion. That's very important.
어다 레레시는 그노시다기.
So we are just going to, on that note, to take a moment to develop our motivation. And I will switch the sound settings so that we can have the best experience for everyone. So as a first step, we think about the 4 elements in our body. And as they come into balance, we begin to be more peaceful. Body and the mind are peaceful, they are pure. So when we look at the nature of our mind and its fundamental aspect, it has this vast equanimity. And this vast equanimity is like the perfect soil which can sprout any seed that we choose to plant in it.
senje silata wa ina yo soso ruru soso ge tsendiga da nye za cheshu de nuji o da kanga je che mombo ge tune te don jawa da nye za chimbo yi so much.
So using, reasonings and logic, think every single sentient being is connected to me. Ultimately, they are not different. They are just like that person closest to me. Try to feel that sense of connection with all beings.
Nye ne tsel kanga yi de gongwa o da tandi chi ma to da nye ne le da sia da tandi zhe ge zu sa nye ne tsel de ne me so ma.
So think, in reality, actually, all these beings are worthy, right? They are attractive in the sense of I have reasons to like them. There's not a single one that I could point to and say that this is my enemy.
용주 nye za chimbo yi za penpa ni ka to ta de ge penpa 용주 zhe ge de o da di che de da nga se de songji koro nuji da songji cha to ba ji so yi so much.
So because all of these sentient beings are connected to me, then I have a measure of responsibility for their temporary and ultimate happiness. To really be able to assist them with that, I must achieve the same enlightenment that Lord Buddha himself did. May I achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings.
Zhichadu nye shi tume chaso na ta kar je jeng nye penpa yung zu zhe to kandre ya bo chwa gare so ma do.
through an enlightened being's clairvoyance, through their capacity to manifest perfect holy deeds, enlightened activity, they can help sentient beings so effectively. How wonderful that would be. So we shall pause our meditation there. So those are the preliminaries. So we are going to jump right in, Geshe said. We are going to move quickly to the text. So in terms of where we are, for those of you who are following along with the text, I believe that we are on page 27 in the second sentence in the second paragraph. And
Hey,
so, yeah.
Can you turn off musician sounds again? The sound is much better.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm happy to do that. There you go. Is it different? Okay, yeah, no, I'm gonna try and train myself in this habit, Dave, so you don't have to interject.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry about that,
No
but
worries.
thank you for doing it because it is important. I do want people to have the best sound.
It makes a difference.
It does, yeah, no, and that's important. So, and if anyone else notices, feel free to tell me too. So we are on page. Yep. And so just as a reminder in terms of the subject of this text, it is really focused on the two things of calm abiding and special insight. And of course, it also explains that in terms of calm abiding and special insight, śamatha and vipaśyanā, when they are practiced as a union to bring forth or connected to that wisdom realizing emptiness, this is the supreme way to practice. Right. So then in terms of how this actually works for the practitioner, we want to be able to practice both calm abiding and special insight. But of course, being able to understand, bring forth and focus upon emptiness right from the beginning can be difficult. So we first develop our calm abiding and then try to develop a special insight or vipaśyanā into sort of the relative reality. Then as we continue to refine the calm abiding and special insight, we can bring that special insight to penetrate ultimate reality or emptiness. And so when we speak about calm abiding, of course, we can understand that it's not just speaking about that single-pointed concentration exclusively, right? It is also actually developing a mental stability that is going to help us effectively engage in our practice. But also the practitioner is not advised to focus on calm abiding exclusively, because if he or she puts all of their time into developing that calm abiding but are not realizing it, then they have wasted the opportunity to cultivate other important positive mental qualities. So the other thing is that if we cultivate calm abiding in a vacuum and don't try to bring forth wisdom realizing impermanence, wisdom realizing emptiness, or the practices of bodhicitta, even with a very refined calm abiding, when we pass away from that life, that realization of calm abiding can degenerate. So it is not something that is stable.
다 쉐와는 쉐와를 배도 요바데 다 쇼바 니지 쇼주 세프게 초와 템보 tum바니나 초와 템보 세원 다 대파 못하는 건도 대야이네서 지르와스.
Whereas feeling for the practices of love, compassion, bodhicitta, imprints for emptiness, these are something that we're really going to carry with us from lifetime to lifetime that are going to bring us real benefits. So that's a very important context.
다 tube나 tum바니 체메지 도사소나 디테네 주데 konyondo 야치는 요마르 다 대할야기네서 지르와스.
Emptiness in particular, if one has a pramana, a valid cognition of emptiness, that valid cognition will not degenerate in future lifetimes. It remains stable from lifetime to lifetime.
다 땡안조 비 고가 메바 때니 말해서 다 안조 다 무슨노라 무슨노 세치요 말와 tum바니 또니라 다 버게 근딜이와 투바 피케글로지 고야 모모두와스.
So it's also not as if we have no opportunity to develop our understanding of emptiness. We have the opportunity to do this. And this is why Geshe shares those stories of like ordinary practitioners who put in the effort and they were able to offer their realization of emptiness to His Holiness, for example. This has happened in our lifetimes. So we are going to now go to our text. And in terms of where we are in the text, we are in the second paragraph on page 27.
디 데타 시라지 센정 원이라 소소다나 데 돈바르 센 노용 마미 쇼로드요 마미 니까요 니까 매바요 마미 디베세죠 마미 마고베세라요 마미 다다슈와 마미 소.
So, in this way, when the identity of the mind is specifically examined by wisdom, in the ultimate sense it is perceived neither within nor without. It is not perceived in the absence of both, neither the mind of the past nor that of the future, nor that of the present is perceived.
다 가서 세점비 따와 되게 조 싫어 과야 조 지키시기도 왔어.
Chiro-sen.
zuidatororiala soba ta nuwa nuji ya maresen zo teniji kwa yares.
So the mind only or chitta mantran view, really what this is aimed at sort of countering is that there are external forms, smells, tastes, and so forth that are appearing as if they arise from themselves and not from the mind, to stop that false appearance.
단디가 델리 좀 답게 제 토르서는 세 코로요 하고서라와 다쇼 mam보니 따와이는 노노지 하고서라 덴바트바치면 되스.
And then the Svatantrika takes this a little bit further, that if we are saying that these phenomena exist as separate from mind, they are not truly existent in the way that they appear, that is a false conception.
노다이 덴바트바만도 샬라요 덴바트바만도 치카리나 저노니까요 덴바트바만도 다 대주로세요 하레스 된다.
So any outer phenomena lacks true existence, any inner phenomena lacks true existence. Outer and inner, all phenomena are not truly existent.
단 디비그네스 이나요 덴바트바만도 마고베네스 이나이 덴바트바요 사만도.
So it covers all the bases, again saying that all of those things and circumstances of the past are not truly existent. Likewise, those things that will arise in the future are not truly existent.
어딘데바지 세시위 체용 구원이 좀 먹고 과비 체용 구원도요 뭐로 세는 준다메 땡다메 주제 많이 바고.
So we continue. So by the way, we're on page 27, second paragraph midway down. When the mind is born, it comes from nowhere, and when it ceases, it goes nowhere, because it is inapprehensible, undemonstrable, and non-physical.
다 대가로 하는 데가 말에 세시위 제 구원이 좀 먹고자 칠 때라요 왔어. 제 구원이 공세요. 베나 메기 시바시 메기 온보게 노는 시용 거 왔어.
Yeah. So Geshe said that this requires some explanation, because like we can't say that when the mind is born in the sense of when it starts to function, that is coming from nowhere. So for example, if the mind is reacting to a visual object, this is arising due to the interaction of that object and the I sense consciousness, for example.
다 먹어도 판도로 말했을 때한테 대마 잡았던지 지야 말해. 주저리 과자를 자해res.
So when the mind is born, it comes from nowhere, and when it ceases, it goes nowhere. This is talking about that truly existent mind, right? So important to understand that what those words are refuting is not mind generally, it is that truly existent mind.
세는 준데메 땐데메 주제 많이 봐고 다 대도 된다고 그러was. 니네 저러와.
Yeah.
땐데메 주데메라 주제 많이 봐 공연 봐대 디 ngo원이 진짜 이세나 좋아.
So when the mind is born, it comes from nowhere. When it ceases, it goes nowhere because it is inapprehensible, undemonstrable, and non-physical.
다 군신을 좋아.
Yeah, right?
다 그조도 뇽도 요건데 왔어. 또 세땐데메 준데메 너는 주제 말에 세대한테 얘네서 이니 문제 된 것도 봐 이니 문제 잠깐만.
So when the mind is born, it comes from nowhere, and when it ceases, it goes nowhere because it is inapprehensible, undemonstrable, and non-physical. So Geshe just saying that inapprehensible, undemonstrable, and non-physical, these are characteristics of the mind. So those three terms are not just talking about the truly existent mind and refuting that. We're talking about mind in general. Nanso sem chirkola kechishegure tsikten so sum, right? So those three terms are actually describing the way that the mind actually abides.
어떤 때는 매도된 누지 때야 말해. 매도된 누지 세르줘야 말아. 왔어. 그거지 마이자.
So that when we say that it is inapprehensible and non-physical, right? We know that this is true of mind because it's not like those flowers sitting on Geshe-la's table that he can see in front of him, reach out and touch them and experience them as a tangible phenomenon.
라바레레도 다니 차와레레 뇽도 자나 주야레스. 세 그쪽은 뭐
So if we look at this paragraph, it's actually a very beautiful description, which is exploring both the relative aspects of the mind as well as the ultimate aspect of the mind.
다 치간디 지이나요. 예바 간디 지이나요. 뭐니레요. 그쪽은 뭐레레. 대도가 뭐레레.
And what can we carry over from that understanding? That every phenomena actually has a relative aspect and, a relative nature and an ultimate nature as well. So any functioning thing, Geshe said, so not just phenomena, so ngopo, so any functioning thing has both a relative and an ultimate aspect.
파파 깨줘 제발이 신도가고 계속 바다버데 예수 세는 용서잖아 뭐냐도 고 많이 받는 몸에서 고 몸에 받는 네바마이 마고바요 마이 다다시와요 마이노시 자첸주로.
So we now come to the quote. If you ask, what is the entity of that which is inapprehensible, undemonstrable, and non-physical? The heap of jewels Arya Sutra states, O Kashyapa, when the mind is thoroughly sought, it cannot be found. What is not found cannot be perceived, and what is not perceived is neither past, nor future, nor present. Through such analysis, the beginning of the mind is ultimately not seen, the end of the mind is ultimately not seen, and the middle of the mind is ultimately not seen.
단대지 셀이야 미미야 보냐냐나서나 먼저 하고 가래스. 아니 개밥다 개밥 뭐 지가 개밥이 지가. So
Geshe said you want to understand the context of the discussion. And the discussion here is that there were some scholars that asserted that there actually is not really any relative aspect to phenomena. The relative aspect is not there at all. There is only the ultimate aspect of phenomena. And so this heap of jewels Arya Sutra is a canonical citation to kind of support the argument that follows. So the scholars that are saying that there is actually not really a relative aspect to phenomena, there is only the ultimate. they cite this line from the sutra, O Kashyapa, when the mind is thoroughly sought, it cannot be found.
다 세미 야쇼 예 다들 야 되는 세 야쇼 때 대동인의 딱 그 세들에 와서 요는 디그라 그거래 타마 디그라지 맞는데.
And also what they're saying is the very best mind is the mind that perceives the ultimate. Therefore, only the ultimate nature of the mind needs to be found. That's another way of understanding this.
미미지 허드 갖다는 지선전년 나오나 이거라. 시라 야쇼 제 도쇼데 이나 디그라야 라야면 되나? 이네선 다 매번 나오지 왔어.
No, shirab di rana numa denso ke chempo.
시라 야쇼 데 라가면 되나? 이네선 다 매번 나오지 왔어.
Kare mepa.
다치 가리나 된다.
Ya po koge 문제 있어서 kare sungi 연am.
시라 야쇼 데 많이 말하나? 이네선 이때 매번 나오러 왔어. 저도 덴바로 왔을 때지.
거기면
다음에 아다 요능에는 지금 뭐 야쇼 디라가라 왔어. 못해 도쇼 시라 야쇼 디. 하고 살아와. 괜찮아. 얘네들 여바지나 하고서 시라 토쇼 디라가라 왔어. 얘네지나.
Yeah.
하고서 디 말하는 얘네들은 요 말아 왔어. 건져 달라고 야레스.
Karing ne yomares. So karing ne yomares. Ne yomar was kare.
이 가리 이나요.
Di selbuchen lash.
세쇼 이 가리 이나요. 시라 야쇼 디 말하나? 거기나서는 매번 나와서 왔어. 건져 대서 야레스.
Oh, okay. So sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
It's a very subtle point. It was funny. So I needed to get that unpacked. So what it is saying is that since this mind of ultimate wisdom is supreme, only the things that are perceived by that mind of ultimate wisdom are actually present. The things that are not perceived by that wisdom are not.
왔다 던지지 이자 자시라 야쇼 때는 대돌에 딱히 시라 되는데스.
The best wisdom is the wisdom that perceives the ultimate.
다 디거는 버경이에 내서 딱 라야 되라. 대도 마도 하고서 대도 대마 마도 그저 대마라고 하면 되와스.
And that supreme wisdom, when we talk about it in its ultimate sense, is that wisdom that is perceiving only the ultimate. It is not perceiving the relative. Okay, so that hopefully the argument has come together. Are people following a little bit? I am now, so hopefully you are.
하고서라 왔다 던지지 이자 그도 간가 요 말해. 새도 그도 고조도 간가 요 말해.
So the relative aspect of phenomena of persons of mind are not really true because they are not perceived by that supreme wisdom. Only the ultimate is. So that is the argument.
그래서 왔다 건도 대세가 그래서 당안조 세 대세가 말해. 대돌 동보 딱히 동보라게 세지요 왔어. 디거 짜와이나.
Yeah.
짜위가라.
Yeah.
어느 다 공유문예 세대 문예다. 세는 용스 짜나 문예도 세대.
카렌 얘기요 말이야.
세 짜와이나.
셈 짜와이나.
야, 타니도 비타데 짜와.
칼레 쓰서 칼레 가봐.
세 저거 수사 요도 매 짜와이나. 어느 라야면 되스. 간조치나.
Right. But the Prasangakas, they are not holding this. They are not holding that there is no relative mind, for example. What they're holding is that if you look for a inherently existent relative mind, you will not be able to find it, right? Yeah, so you have to say, you have to add these terms like true existence or inherent existence. Otherwise, the argument does not hold. So when it says there is not past, there is not future, there is not present. Yeah.
Right.
Demba juba mare rangjingi juba. Demba juba sana telgyowa gitsi kro.
Demba juba sana tanjo mare rujiba gitsi kro. So cho anda what kensa.
This kari chantunya da was so lagi.
Demba juba sana rujiba ro. 단저와 로지지 매바데로와
Yeah.
선에 가르치고
So Tsongkhapa sena Dempa Drupa, the Ninga
되는
Trupa.
매매 세대 dembacho parjares
Right.
하고 lama tsongkapa chena
Yeah.
bed mepal mares
So what Lama Tsongkhapa would say is that when we say there's neither past nor future nor present, all of these negation, it is just no truly existent future, no truly existent present, no truly existent so on and so forth. Not that these things are not there at all.
미밍에시에 게야 등에 단다 세게도 왔어 lama tsongkapi dembacho pa yendo ago 세코로 돈에 영예는 들려 마레스 한번 보여res 대바 세도 모두 고자 가르이나 예네서 요 마레스 대도 대마마도
Right. But there are scholars who are holding past, present, future, and so forth, all of these different phenomena. It is only their ultimate nature that counts. There is no relative nature at all. So there are scholars that hold that.
어다티는 먼저 첨부치 된다 알렌저지자 돌러와
So that's an important point.
디 대타 돈데 레랑으로 소선 얘가 말해 디 대타다나 센제 돈보 토송이 요다바지스마도 타마요다바지스마도 바마요다바지스마도
So we continue with the paragraph. Through such analysis, the beginning of the mind is ultimately not seen. The end of the mind is ultimately not seen. And the middle of the mind is ultimately not seen.
다테 덴바타바자는 거다 당기테레 강가 돈보요 덴바마죠 바바요 덴바마죠 타마요 덴바마죠
And so Geshe said, just apply the same reasoning, right? You have your little Lama Tsongkhapa there on your shoulder. That's me saying that. But Geshe said, so holding this as the view that there is, right, not an truly existent beginning of the mind, not a truly existent end or middle of the mind, and so forth. So that is the argument that is being made here. And it's not just the case with mind. Also, if we talk about a person, right? If we talk about a being, they are not truly existent in the beginning, truly existent in the middle, or truly existent in the end. Right. And so together with that person, then, whether there is a beginning or end, then we ask the question, is there a beginning or end to mind? So this is referencing that discussion. So we can say, actually, with authority, that if we talk about a truly existent beginning or end, there is no truly existent beginning or end to a sentient being. There is no truly existent beginning or end to mind. But if we talk about the cause of samsara, the afflictions, while there is a definite, while there is no beginning to that, there is an end to that. So these words beginning and end can become quite important. Yeah. So whether we talk about samsara itself, whether we talk about suffering, there is no beginning, but there is an end to both of these things. Same with ignorance, right? A lot of other things to consider here. Ignorance has no beginning, but there can be an end point to ignorance. And because of that fact, this is why we engage in the cultivation of the Dharma. Chö tamshe roa konso tamayomares, barayomares, de yang semla tamayomares, dente yomares. Then it, yeah. So continuing at the bottom of page 27, all phenomena should be understood as lacking an end and a middle, just as the mind does not have an end or a middle.
거다 대지 강강 다 간조 전에 루지바 집어서는 데마트바잖아 요가레스 된다.
So if we want to understand the text in the context that it was written, we think of this Svatantrika view, and what it is refuting is this truly existent end, middle, and so forth.
디 대다를 세 타도 이메바 콘더체네 생정원이 공용 메지 세 공개 용서 또 받대요 동안 또지 대도비 생정 넘버 접인 원이 줄라수면 원이 요다바 지스모 통어.
So we continue. With the knowledge that the mind is without an end or a middle, no identity of the mind is perceived. What is thoroughly realized by the mind, too, is realized as being empty. By realizing that, the very identity, which is established as the aspect of the mind, like the identity of physical form and so forth, is ultimately not perceived.
데송아 어다 세 데마 마트 비그네스 테 통소나 생정 원이 하고서와
Right.
뭐 다도야 또 tum바니 테 두바레 라고지.
So when we have this understanding that the mind does not exist inherently, we can understand that the identity of the mind is something that is empty.
디 대다르 디 대다르 통소아 시라지 지토제 원이 요다바 지스마 통이 주다고 못다고 동하고 못동거 시나 사바도 지바 셰고 사바 메바 셰고 슝아 셰고 마슝아 셰고 예바고 셰고 메바시 또바 마셰도.
So in this way, when the person does not ultimately see the identity of all phenomena through wisdom, he will not analyze whether physical form is permanent or impermanent, empty or not empty, contaminated or not contaminated, produced or non-produced, and existent or non-existent. Sukti dromason, right?
주든 마스 지다 주다 들어와.
Listen.
다 따바레 못따바레 사트 따바사데 코 데마트바 이니메지 자가 말이라스 따바 말레스 주사데.
Right. So in order to talk about permanent and impermanent, to refute something as being permanent and posit it as impermanent, we don't have to hold that it does not truly exist, that it lacks true existence. You can hold impermanence without doing that.
다 못따바요 말에 못따바레베세 말에 나고 치라요 거도스 대사다 데마트바 바자야레스요. 못따바셰고 세고도스.
Right. So he will not analyze whether physical form is permanent or impermanent. So what is it saying here then? What it's saying here is that having understood that it lacks true existence, the person does not need to analyze that.
대송아.
Sorry, nga triwa chikyo. Di konso takpa dang mi tapa samlo matange gigumsen, dempa drupa metsang roa mi tapa gikyun medro gidus, di rebes.
데마트바 메아이스 데마트베 못따바세 한다고 데마트베 따바세 한다고 강가요 말레스 된다.
Right. So, but ngune samlo tangeniena, nganso dempa madrupa hakona, dene mi tapa rangshingi hako drogirebes.
제도 딩엘 하고 가레스.
Okay, right. Listen.
대송아. 오야 다 사바도 지바 사바 메바스. 그런데 다 단다 있는 간조 사바도 지바세리 단다 있는 간조 핀보데 사제를 해셔도 하고 사면 말해 하고 살아와 다 손제도 손제 삼바솔 야래서는 사면고 장도 그래서.
So now we come to the terms contaminated or not contaminated. So when we understand as an ordinary being our own skandhas, our own aggregates, for example, our body, we understand that this is contaminated due to its causes. But we understand that bodhisattvas and ultimately Buddhas, they are able to give rise to bodies which are uncontaminated.
다 사바도 지바테 사죠. 사면 사한테 여러 몸보레스. 다 소선 대서만 여러 몸보야레스.
And actually, so if you're not confused yet, contaminated and uncontaminated and what this actually means are held differently by the different schools of tenets. So it's not a universal understanding.
다 사바도 지바세는 빼나. 사바도 지바세는 퀸보텔라면은 니모 진로가 요나 슈처는로가 요나. 아제 핀보테 사제 이드마이 핀보텔라면은 대저도 더 컨트롤도 되지 슈처는로야요나.
Right.
사제.
So one way of looking at how do we know if a body or the aggregates are contaminated or not if from the person inhabiting that body, there is strong attachment and other afflictions that are arising, that body can be said to be contaminated. This is one understanding.
다 소매세나 빼나 예 빼야 보지야레스 제근 동라 도 차고 도 차고 진걸 꾸바 렘바지 봐줘봐이나 꾸바 칠레나
Yep.
다네 코르르르진 공부 창도도 와스 렘바트
Lembadi, ko tramo chagres tanda dodi. Oh, right, lembadi, right.
렘바트 갈레 멜로 하다 반도 코르르트 도도 와 데네를 소매세 야레스 너무 쉬처럼도 뭐또 갈레 너무
Right. So Geshe is saying that in the Abhidharma kosha there is zotsawarwa. In the Abhidharma, there is a beautiful example to illustrate this contaminated versus uncontaminated body. So if you think of the example of a hot stone and you place it in some water and you take the stone out relatively quickly, because of the heat within the stone, all of the water is going to either evaporate or drop off. This is how an uncontaminated body is, right? It is not giving rise to those samsaric experiences. Right. So also if you have like a wet hand or your hand is covered in water, if you touch that hot stone or you sprinkle those drops, they will either evaporate or roll right off because of the warm nature of the stone. So that is what uncontaminated is like. Right.
This one, oh, the Zula Suba Machine, this one. Zula, Tassos, Topa, Yonachila, Zula, Tuba Macheba, Teja, the Chowad, and the shit on the jet, no Bashiba, no Tuba Mache.
Just as physical form is not examined, similarly, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are not examined.
This one, oh, that's really the matter of Mana, Meba Noji,
right?
Oh, the she, Pimonga Chibardas.
So, what it's saying is that if physical form lacks true existence, so this is true of feeling, recognition, compositional factors, consciousness, and so forth.
Oh, Actually, Kawan didn't even talk about it. She's already so quite.
Letting answer Shokudin such as a Rajisos and Chikandroma sounds interesting.
Oh, yeah, that no Bashiba no like to one machine and to go to Bhāvanākrama.
Listen.
To tell you, no Bashiba mission it, and the Minotoma Sosokupa shade the land with you. No Bashiba no machine. Chiche Matana, Tea, Shara, no Chumandabi, Teto, Tela Tupa, Kalanjo.
So, when the object does not exist, its characteristics also cannot exist. So how can they be examined? In this way, when the person does not firmly apprehend the entity of a thing as ultimately existing, having investigated it with wisdom, the practitioner engages in non-conceptual, single-pointed concentration.
Pena Chase Kuzanda, which is registered the Mataba Mana, Tango do Kuvato La Palayala, registered by Yusayo Maravas.
So we understand, right, that if we think that the person does not exist truly, then the person's head, their arms, their hands, and so forth also lacks true existence.
Teta Shira Genomba Cheto, Nipo Kungis and Nanjobi, Nipo Kungi Ngoni, Tetombar. So
Geshe just continuing, so he's reading that sentence again. The practitioner engages in non-conceptual, having investigated it with wisdom, the practitioner engages in non-conceptual single-pointed concentration, and thus the identitylessness of all phenomena is realized.
Kuzainare, Chikare ina, ding all Tachinilla, Demba Mata Patella Tapagan Jutovaina, Hakasarawa, and Jugochabaino, that they are things Dembo second to us.
So then what this is saying is that if one can first come to an understanding that the person or whatever phenomena, that their nature is a lack of true existence, then that single-pointed concentration can be brought forth correctly.
Yep. 매번 니저 도지 공시라지 니빈 오니 소소다니 뭐고지 일하셔봐 용서 뽕아 좀 바시 공바셔봐 디 nom바 노용 뭐도지 오니 매번이 또방용 먼저데 시라지 노아메비 셔로.
And thus, identitylessness of all phenomena is realized. Those who do not meditate with wisdom by analyzing the entity of things specifically, but merely meditate on the elimination of the mental activity, cannot avert conceptual thoughts and also cannot realize identitylessness because they lack the light of wisdom. If the fire of consciousness knowing phenomena as they are is produced from individual analysis of suchness, then like the fire produced by rubbing wood, it will burn the wood of conceptual thought.
어단 대집이 양 조주조 게야 돼요. 아까서와 공연 제요이라 마셔봐 레레 대대바이나.
Yeah.
어단저 말이 빨리 디노요 내가 저거 말했어.
So Geshe said that there's one sentence in here that shows you one of the main purposes that this text, that this treatise needed to be composed. And it is this one. But merely meditate on the elimination of mental activity cannot avert conceptual thoughts and also cannot realize identitylessness. So just emptying the mind of thoughts will not bring forth understanding.
어다 신이 있어야 되지 강갈 답 어다 배도 노아레스 된다.
A pit no way.
공연 제요이라 마셔봐 레레 되는 고공이네 비도 보이 있어야 되지.
So those asserting that meditation means emptying your mind and just sitting in a state where you're not thinking of anything at all, not only is that not even calm abiding, that is not even really meditation.
다 야쇼데 체 도쇼데 당지 말이 빨리 내반도도 다리라바 노지. 노아 노진도도 뭔데 돈 보게 어단 드렌도도 뭔데 시라게 소소시니 다야 되레 세기도스.
So in order to eliminate this ignorance grasping at the self, we need to have a measure of investigation, right? Thinking, for example, do these phenomena exist in the way that they appear or not? Through going forth with this process of questioning, then wisdom can be developed.
다시라 노아 메세한테 하고서와 당기치 담만도와. 어다 공연이라 마셔봐.
Right.
그래서 대대바이나 고시라가 노아한테 매아이다 말이 빨리 내반도 말레스.
So because just emptying the mind of thoughts completely lacks the illumination factor of wisdom, then one cannot avert conceptual thoughts and one cannot realize emptiness or how things really are.
단데는 신에도라도 대시에 가르베다네 소소시 다 가르시었어요. 신에도라도.
nganso shinegi drubsu dang tunkin dang chatsama dratrisos chigyondroma sonzindrani did.
소소 당길래라고 될거 아니어서 가라세. 막고는서 다 오나 신에드비가 다 신에도라도 계제 대세를 리라고 대시기.
So then Geshe said, so I was saying to Geshe just that this material is really challenging and we prepared some things that were a little bit easier as well. So I was suggesting that we spend a few minutes on some of those essential aspects of calm abiding that might be a little bit less philosophical.
다 신에드바이는 신에가 조니레스.
Loso.
년도 저초지.
Yep. So when we speak about the attainment of a calm abiding, we can understand that this discussion usually has two parts. The first is building up the conditions necessary for calm abiding, and the second is the development of calm abiding itself. And so mainly when we speak about developing shine or calm abiding, we can understand it in terms of recognizing the 5 faults and applying the 8 antidotes. And this particular description is something that is rooted in many scriptures. It's very important. So the first of the 5 faults is the fault of laziness. So actually, when we think about when we're getting ready to practice, the main factor that's hindering ourselves from actually starting the practice or actually sitting down is laziness. And it's not just in the case of calm abiding, it can be in the case of any cultivation that we're trying to do.
다시 미션이 지워 말이다. 소주가 세인나래 가 tum바니나래 가디나 다 된다. 요인니까 나중에 차쇼때 레로드레스.
So whether we're talking about developing bodhicitta, whether we're studying emptiness, in terms of like actually preparing to like start the session and to get it going, what's preventing us from doing that? It is usually laziness.
당연히 보여야 고고고베깔라 동아 제바드지레스.
Dongak jebasana?
동아 제바
Right. And then when we actually sit down to meditate, the next difficulty is forgetting the instructions. We can't remember the instructions about what we were supposed to meditate on. Right. And forgetting the advice or instructions in the context of calm abiding or shine, this can be simply losing our object of meditation that we're trying to hold in the mind. It can be understood that way as well. And then the third of the 5 faults are laxity and excitement. And these are what are unfolding as the meditation is actually happening. Right. Yes. So laxity, so laxity and excitement may arise. Hagasang. This is the third fault. So that's why we need the fourth one, right? Non-application of the antidote. If laxity and excitement are present and we don't apply the antidotes, we have experienced this fault. So what that means, right, is if we're meditating and we realize that laxity or excitement are starting to happen, but we just sit back and don't apply any antidotes, then we can't progress in our meditation and the session can be lost. So just talking about the antidotes, the 8 antidotes to these 5 faults, we're going to leave aside laziness for the moment and go to the second fault, forgetting the instructions. The antidote to this is mindfulness in the sense of recollection.
Laxity
and excitement, right? The antidote to those is introspection. In other words, the mind seeing them arising. So if introspection notices that laxity and excitement are present, that's the first step, noticing that they're present. The second step is we need to apply the antidote to that laxity and excitement. So the 7th of the 8 antidotes is application of the antidote. Another thing, because excitement and especially laxity, right. So because laxity and excitement can also have extremely subtle manifestations, and because these can be deceptive to the practitioner, if we try to cultivate the antidote to the extremely subtle laxity or excitement, but there's no improvement, it is said it is best to stop the meditation session and to take a break. Generally, that is the advice. So when there's something very pernicious that could trip up the health of the body or mind, right, and some of these subtle things operating, we need to recognize that and we need to just rest. We need to take some time to rest and heal that. Right. And so if, however, let's assume that the laxity and excitement are not present, if we continue to apply the antidotes, even though they are unnecessary, this is also a fault. It is the fifth fault of over application.
다 디년보다 돈욕세 되래. 돈욕세로.
And the antidote to that over application is simply equanimity.
단리송아스 다 녀빠 논에 제번 녀빠 두쇼테 다 가디나로 와스 레로테레스.
So going back to the first of the five faults, and it's the first because it is the heaviest of these five, and that is laziness.
다 코녀빠 두쇼테 다 녀보 제거는 콜 녀보 제자바레스.
And because it is the most pernicious of these five faults, it actually has four antidotes. 4 of the 8 antidotes are assigned to this alone.
리송아 다 녀보 논에 다 동보테 폐곰 되는 대화테레스 대화.
So the first antidote is faith, but Geshe is rendering this as faith having recollected the benefits. So a faith based on the comprehension of the benefits.
다 손주지 세이나 이지바로 와스 폐모보 소노 돈에 다 대화용 그거야래 다 손바니지 가레이나 지바레스.
So, if we think about bodhicitta, for example, we see in the text it has a long discussion of those benefits. So we need to recollect the benefits to really strive in that practice, similar with love and compassion.
다 무카시 땅가 마르다바 슈송아스 야베 자나다발 컴퓨터 가타네 무카시 니도 세가 놀로 잘라도 컴퓨터 요자야 되는 내서 야정부터.
Younger son, computer chikiere ro, dene?
야 컴퓨터 가타네 아이패드다 보실 가타네 뭐지.
Yeah.
어느 소소가 케마도 첨바더니 요자니 파종.
Yeah.
Then it's going to be so logistics was
Right. Yeah. So Geshe is just speaking a little bit about the sort of attachment to distraction. So he was reading that there are some people who they kind of love their computer and their iPad so much, and they're so kind of immersed in that to buy a new computer, they would sell one of their kidneys or they would sell one of their organs. So he was reading that recently.
다 대배지래 다 된다 못자 옛날에 컴퓨터 옛날에 키 폐한다고 돈이라 어다 거 가야 슈터 버지 왔어.
So Geshe said that, why, think about the sacrifices that people are willing to make to achieve a worldly thing because they see that as really beneficial. They're even going to sell their own organs for that. So if you're really convinced something is beneficial, you'll really strive towards that.
어다 간저 선반이 현지에서 칸이도 야보시게 하던 저한테 지면 있어 나도 용이야 말해.
So we say that we like love, compassion, and bodhicitta, and it's easy to say those words, but our feelings or being convinced of how great love and compassion are might not be of equal measure to the man who sold his kidney to buy the tablet, right?
언제서마 어다 폐도 대화대 답해 때 뭐 중앙이나 어다때 이제 먼저 가르치는 걸 그건도 소민도 맞대고 너바tembo 여와로 좀 이게 말레용 거 알아요.
So that comprehension of the benefits brings forth a faith in what we are striving towards. Because of that faith in what we are striving towards, we think, I definitely must achieve this. And this is the second antidote, the antidote of aspiration or dunpa.
어다ting 안접 담미미야 좀 뭐라체 못해서 마다 가고 그러와 단 넘발레 자소나 넘바 코로포게 템보 예매라 때니 젠디 템보 예매레스.
And aspiration is particularly important because based upon the solidity of our aspiration, then the next one, number 3, effort, is going to be able to naturally unfold. Tsunju.
다 젠디 템보 레바인 다 딘지고 시중 코로 태조메 발레용 그러와스.
And the natural result of that joyous effort being stabilized is the 4th antidote of Xinjiang or pliancy, mental or physical.
다 레로 그냥 봉이네 다 되래. 서서 개추추 괜찮아.
So these are, Geshe said that my voice is too quiet. If you can't hear, let me know. I was trying to sound calm. So he said that these 4 are the antidotes to laziness. They're the chene kunzu chifu du.
기보 가면 보게 라체 가라 단다 로지지요.
Listen.
다 레로 그냥 봉이네 대 시중 되래.
So ultimately, the real antidote within these 4 to laziness is said to be pliancy. It's the actual antidote. The others are preliminary.
대토발라 다 시중하고 그러와스 릴 깔레메 바셀 깔레메 비가 내서지래.
So why is pliancy the ultimate antidote? Because when we have physical pliancy, There's no feeling of tiredness or discomfort in the body as we meditate. And similarly with mental pliancy, there is no weariness within the mind as we meditate. So remember that there is a mental pliancy and physical pliancy, and there's also a bliss of physical pliancy and a bliss of mental pliancy. But for that pliancy to arise, we need to have a very strong joyous effort. And that joyous effort is hard to bring forth without a stable aspiration. And that aspiration comes in the faith of the benefits of the practice. In understanding how all of this unfolds, this is the reason why in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, Shantideva begins with a discussion of the benefits of bodhicitta. And another thing that's really interesting is that if we look at Lord Buddha's teaching, we talk about the first turning of the wheel, the middling turning of the wheel, and the final turning of the wheel. In the middling turning of the wheel, which we regard as definitive, much of what is taught there is the benefits of states like enlightenment and so forth. So a lot of those sutras too, they're discussing mind in terms of, and it's this interesting Tibetan word, which is namkyen, which is, I think our FPMT agreed upon translation is the exalted knower in all aspects. But I was speaking to a Canadian Geshe friend of mine, and he said, just call it omniscience. That's a lot easier. So I'll give you those two words. You can decide which you like better. So if we really want to understand calm abiding and practice this first step is to understand these 5 faults and their 8 antidotes. This is going to set us up on the path to being able to cultivate that mind. And so in order for all of this to be able to come forth, we need to ask for the assistance of Avalokiteshvara. So we are going to turn to our discussion of Avalokiteshvara. We are on page 4, the 3rd paragraph of the FPMT translation.
Pandara de jebe shaje chekon zite nyan zite chi chme tu do cheshe takar tanan dubi lonsochi soyi cheche jibe ina ronze jeme zenjo to deshe jasi choyi piso chome konje ina ji.
You show the mandala of your beautiful face like a fully bloomed white lotus. As white as rock crystal and a pure conch shell, you possess the beauty of youth. In the midst of limitless and vast clouds of offerings, you enjoy magical play with the liberating goddesses, radiant amid an entourage of countless sugatas, bodhisattvas, and wrathful deities. So this verse is beginning with the discussion of the qualities of the holy face of Avalokiteshvara. Pundaraka. So actually, Pundaraka. So Pundaraka is one of the names of Chenrezi, and it's a Sanskrit term which is given as the Sanskrit in Tibetan. So it is a type of lotus. So fully bloomed white lotus is the translator's way of translating Pundaraka. So the face is like that. So the beautiful white hue, the refined white hue of Avalokiteshvara's holy face is similar to the refined white hue of this Pundaraka lotus. Yep. So the first line is about the face. Now we're speaking about Avalokiteshvara's holy body. Generally, it's white as rock crystal and a pure conch shell and youthful. This is the appearance of his holy body. So the example given here is the white conch, and Geshe is saying that the white conch is used to summon in Sera for the very special occasion of Mangja. It's a very special kind of tea offering that only happens once in a while. So the white conch is used for that. And interestingly, at Drepung, for example, it's a small child who makes a sound to rise all of the monks for the Mangja ceremony and not the white conch. So different traditions. So Geshe thinks that these traditions are rooted in the idea of the yoga of rising. And the yoga of rising for the practitioner of highest yoga tantra is you imagine yourself rising due to the sound of the Dakini's voices, and the white conch or the child singing the beautiful tune, they're meant to emulate this. So if you're doing the yoga of sleeping, right, and ideally, as you are doing the yoga of sleeping, the mind is resting in the state of emptiness, then when you are roused from this meditation on emptiness, you want this to be done in a beautiful way with the Dakini's voices. Right. So Geshe is saying that the pure conch shell, this is kind of the beautiful hue of Avalokiteshvara. And white is rock crystal. I'm not sure why rock crystal was chosen here, but Geshe said it has a kind of shiny quality, like the crystal rosary that Avalokiteshvara holds in one of his holy hands. So this kind of appearance of the holy body is something that brings forth a feeling of like, a feeling of affinity in whoever perceives it. Yep. Right. So then in the midst of the limitless and vast clouds of offerings, Geshe just explaining the quality of these objects. So out of all of the various holy beings to whom we could make offerings, Tara and Avalokiteshvara, they are kind of the principles. And it's not don't dire nganso mila chupapuna dene konso debo menana dene pentok sheda yomare es konso kechu den so chatsang wa yetsang dene nyochumen du sti segrebe ya koros zije demba de to yugi harwas kai dang tan mawasham gidas chewa pisa yetso chin yu hares koros. Right, so they are the main objects of offering kari dang denba chudang haje kechu chechi kecha mandiwa chewa pisa yetso zone yu hares chewa pisa ya loso and the liberating goddess. So you enjoy magical play with the liberating goddess. In most of the commentaries, it is saying that this liberating goddess is speaking of Tara. Geshe jasi choyi piso chome konji ina jis dewa sheba seri sonji jasi seri shonji semba ta ne tunan nomba cho ndamda nomba yarawa o deji ina. So they are amidst an entourage of Sugatas. So this means the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, and wrathful Dharma protectors. So amongst all of these, they are like the principal ones worthy of offering. This one, because they're radiant above those. And why would we say that their radiance stands out amidst an entourage of all of these holy beings? We could think maybe because it is through petitioning Avalokiteshvara that we develop our love and compassion, and through petitioning Tara that we are able to get the actions of enlightened activity. And with Tara, this is related to a promise she made that until samsara is empty of sentient beings, until all beings are enlightened, she will continually help them with both their mundane and supramundane aims. And it is for this reason that of all of the various monasteries in India and Tibet, one of the main rituals that they perform are related to Tara. So in this way, we've covered one verse of the praise to the noble Avalokiteshvara, so we will pause there. So then, with a happy mind, let us dedicate the merit. Jongjo zemjo rinpoche maje banam jenjo rechi shewa nyamba meba yang kone kondu pewa sho tongi tawa rinpoche maje banam jenjo rechi shewa nyamba meba yang kone kondu pewa sho jambe bao Jada Chemba no Gandu Sambo Deyon Deja De Da Gungi Jisa Dalo Jo Gewa Dida Tongje Radongo Disa Jebe Gyawa Tongje Je Ngowa Gangla Choda Ngava De Dagi Gewe Tsawa Dega Jong Zambo Choji Rabdu Ngowa Ge Gangri Rawe Koye Jingazo Pendan Dewa Male Juyene Jere Ziwan Tenzo Jazo Ye Shabe Site Bado Denjoro So we are, and if you need to get on with your day, of course, please do. But if you need to get on with your day, please do. But we also welcome questions. So if anybody has a question that they would like to ask, Steve, go ahead.
Good morning, Geshe. Good morning, Keja. Thank you for the teachings. Is there any kind of quick and easy advice about physical pliancy? Yes. This has always dogged me. In many decades in Buddhism, and particularly long, 10-hour-long pujas, where I can't walk for several days afterwards. And it's just, I've never really worked this one out. And I've never gotten good advice other than pursue Qigong, yoga, Tai Chi, etc.
Yes, Steve. No, I think this is probably a question that many others have as well. So let us see what Geshe says. Nanso lugi Xinjiang kola di labswa rwa ane nangshe lo mambo drone lugi Xinjiang kandes chik drugores ha kogi mendua ta tes lo cheru drone ko tanda di shabten lo ngas chus dena dene yar langya halepe kale kapo res dene lugi Xinjiang di pet mepa dapo chik res rwa dene lugi Xinjiang kandes drugores mi kashe kechuchina dene tai chi dang yoga tes nyamlen chena chi chena yong sigi res lugi Xinjiang gi drupsul kandes chik res
Me ta te de chisto demore ta ye te tanda korolae te jona yutla lile petu tende yoar was hakosarwa ta zo te li shi to pala hakosar se shi sel kale me ba se ko ma kas kale me ba ta yoar no tende yoar was
so yep tambo semgi Xinjiang drugore tonda so
Ngine deyala tali shijo.
So speaking about the physical pliancy in its ultimate sense, of course, these exercises and so forth for the body are helpful, but actually, in order to achieve this physical pliancy of the body, we first have to achieve the mental pliancy of the mind. So the pliancy of the body follows the pliancy of the mind in this presentation.
하고서 어다 인지면 요알로 토야를 깔래요 메 티케차로 말어 왔을리 유세나 다 보겐 바 마냐나 라셔도 고자요 다 고자비 깔아 하고서 개와드비 깔아 보게 가르쳐 봐이나 했다 셀 깔레메서나 디 온게 다 릴라 깔레메 비즈니스야 룰라 테네 자 용고 요레스
Lungla tene. So Geshe's understanding of this is it is very much related to the prana or the energetic winds. And so it is, although a coarse manifestation of this can be when we get up, our leg is asleep, or it's just very difficult to get the energy after sitting for a long time. Actually, ultimately, what's being spoken about here is not that. It is a physical pliancy in the sense of not experiencing a physical tiredness and able to remain in practice. So this physical pliancy arises from the mental pliancy that we develop preceding that.
어떠네 어때야 데레마도 단다이 할로토도 못어서 데레 오코네스 로가치라
Yeah.
세나 근디가 야 정원들 수근데 와서 나 저주지 세 녀레지 고자기 같은 디그 비모 나야를 배도만 디다세.
But in terms of the aging process of the body, Steve, Geshe will direct you to the recent comments of His Holiness, which was, I spent years and countless hours meditating on bodhicitta, but this didn't prevent me needing knee surgery. So I would just share that with you. Yeah. Yeah.
그래서 어다 대셔도 다 데려와서 릴코 주다대야 뭐 요하루 대지우 타레스도.
But Geshe said that in terms of being able to sit for longer, just because it doesn't fit with this definition of physical pliancy, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't engage in those embodied practices for greater flexibility and comfort. That can be very helpful in our meditation.
야 단다 개파 뭐 지고 세긴도 와서 리그 보게 다르야 가르리제제야 되르지. 세정이네 대조 지렌데 수어시죠.
Lugi
리제제야 지와로.
Yeah, did it?
세정이네 대지렌데 와서.
So physical exercise is a very important longevity practice, and we should actually see that as a longevity practice in Buddhism too. It's very, very important.
다대지 공예네서 된 말했어.
이네 drupsu di perna nganso semgi shinjangdang lugi shinjang drupsu di kandeshi
다 드스트 세긴도 와서 고 자네 단다치다 빼나다 다와 도모 놀라 쳐세시가 메야 까마죠. 종아 대고 자네 깔레 카인 거와 셀 깔레 갈릴 깔레 카인 거와 다 깔레 깔레 코 요르 노소나 고 가제 자네 대바 이나 셀 깔레 메 차치 거와
drupse kandes laugare tutse ringa de amato drupse shela yomare chirta
예 가요 가더니 고 깔레 메 비네스 요르와.
So just as an aside to your question, Steve, I was asking Geshe, like, what's the drupsul? What's the actual way to attain this mental and physical pliancy? And it sounds, from what Geshe explained to me, it sounds like it is simply persistence in meditation, that we push through those walls. And as we are able to spend longer and longer in meditation, eventually that mental and subsequently physical pliancy will arise.
So
pliancy means being able to hold our object of meditation within our mind without feeling like we're having to bring forth a difficult effort or toil, and with the body and mind feeling perfectly at ease and energized as we do it. Right. And remember also that in terms of the 9 levels of calm abiding, Right. And it is not until the 9th abiding, so we have 9 levels of calm abiding, it's not until the 9th level of abiding that physical and mental pliancy can be brought forth in kind of how they act, like in the real traditional sense.
다 세 던지고 부유다 전부 쳐서나
Mhm.
세 걸루도 년도 내와야서 다시도 야서 루 할레베 만다와지 내 리그 짜 강가를 고차냐라 드네 릴을 보게 돼 자주 거 야래.
So you might ask, okay, how is it that something that I've cultivated with my mind, that pliancy, can then lead to a physical pliancy? So Geshe-la's understanding of this is because the mind, right, the sem, and the lung, the wind or prana, are always traveling together, right? So when the mind achieves that pliancy, it brings forth a new quality of prana or wind, which Geshe-la believes has a purifying capacity for the body, and this dispels physical weariness.
다때 고다 보게 되냐 디세 야 할레베 뭐마 레톤비 간에 고자비 갈 따와 이는 때에서 하고야 총소리 야르세 야래.
And actually, like, even if you're not like someone who's able to meditate for hours and hours, but if you're disciplined and regular with your meditation, you've all probably had that experience of lightness, of feeling everything's going well. That's not the actual pliancy, but it's a taste of it.
야 못었더니 알렌드 되지.
So Geshe-la said, sorry, it was a long-winded answer, Steve, but did you get some of your answer there?
That was wonderful. I think I've got the seeds of most of it. Thank you very much. That was very thorough and helpful.
Yeah, thanks so much, Steve.
Thank you.
I think, Carol, it looks like you're next. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, if Annie Bien's question is around the same subject, she should go first.
Oh, okay, we can do like that. Yeah, Annie.
I was just going to say that Robert Thurman did not like the translation of pliancy because he felt like that insisted that you be like a rubber band in your body in order to be able to have any kind of attainment of things. And I don't remember the exact word that he picked, but it had something close to flexibility. That is that your mind is, because your body becomes more open because your mind is more open.
Yeah, the injigitsiki. So I don't know how to
translate
that, but it sounds almost like a suppleness in a way, like
yes,
rather than pliancy,
suppleness.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, if you find that word, Annie, please share it with me, and I'll share it with folks.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead, Carol.
Okay. First, thank you. So there are three kinds of laziness, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just want to check a definition here and see if it connects with last week. So we have the procrastination,
Mm-hmm.
the busyness distraction, and then we have discouragement.
Yeah.
Now, can we connect discouragement to low self-esteem?
So as mentioned, this concept of low self-esteem, I think I mentioned this last week when I was making my dissertation. This concept of low self-esteem just doesn't exist in, like, I mean, that's not to say people don't experience it, but as a concept, it doesn't exist in
well, this is why I'm asking about this concept of discouragement precisely.
Yeah.
Because there are teachings and teachers that connect this to low self-esteem. So I was wondering what Geshe Sonam's view of this would be, and what the Tibetan term is for this discouragement.
There is a term for discouragement. It's just not in the sense of low self-esteem. So what I was going to say, Carol, is I'm going to do my best to give kind of a description that is my best job at trying to bring forth this idea of low self-esteem. So that's
I would rather understand more the concept of discouragement from Geshe Sonam's point of view.
What discouragement means? That's what you want to know? Okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
And what is the name in Tibetan?
Right. So we're putting aside low self-esteem for the moment, and I
want his accurate representation of what discouragement means.
Okay, got you. I got you.
In his system, because that's what's so precious here, right? Okay. So what's the Tibetan word for the third kind of lazy?
Nanso lelo sumpadi rwa sem chakpe lelo tsikandesres. Sem chason ngache tugimendus titsikares. Pekenanga?
Sí. Pequeno. Gilupelelo.
Right? Yeah. Anidi donda karedis. Ji lupas and the karedes.
ji lupa ji yarwa ji lupe lelo shawa ngeje ge lelo ane daniela ni pe lelo
Daniela ni pelelo roa. Ji lupe lelo di roa.
ji lupe lelo sen le ka tes che sa wa che
Uh-huh.
o ta yung mo ne shete ja chi yarwa
Yeah. Yeah.
ter
yeah,
ji
yeah.
lupe lelo
So it basically he's describing it. Yeah, it's something totally different.
nyed
We try.
what-
So the initial thing is we try to do the practice. The result doesn't come, so we get discouraged.
nyed
Ah.
ji lupa se kumba san di dudu chin duwa
Mhm.
kumba
Yep.
ha ko song
Lao kuzong.
pe na la le ya te zen ro yo na
Mhm.
me ri ji te kuwa lo nyo zha shun di jipat
Yeah.
no lo zan da wo chi ma lu ne la ro ma to ba cha no ya te se yo ji lupa sa na
Ji lupa sana kampa gi natsa dabo chi.
ya kumbi dudu te ma
Uh-huh.
fulang zhen ka nge shu chi te da
So the word, it comes from a part of the foot, as far as I'm understanding, that when you're climbing up a mountain pass, this part of the foot becomes almost like strained or very hardened, and it just is not possible to walk anymore. That's what the word literally means, that we're translating as
da
discouragement.
komba ja za do te ni jipat ni yo wa
Yeah.
ma te te si tu
So there's something wrong with the kind of energy point in the foot, which prevents you from walking further. So that's what the actual meaning of the word is.
ta te khoro pe khoro ni kha du la na
Mhm.
ta ko sa ta te da ngan zo lo jo do nyale zo in te zen do ne te she de ja ji wa
Yeah. So study and practice don't bring forth the results we want, and we get discouraged. We think they don't work. So I don't see
So-
low self-esteem in here at all.
Wait. This is really interesting. Wait. So what's the name of this in Tibetan?
Ji lupe lelo.
Chinupilelo. What an interesting thing. So this is why the antidote would be the kind of confident faith. You have to redo, or do you I mean, what would be, if we're talking about a foot getting hardened, you have to have healing and wait, right?
Yep.
You can't just go straight ahead pushing through it. So you have to, what are the antidotes?
Ji lupe lelo gi nyambo kares karin sana perna nganso kangpa trakpo chana dene utsu jamne riyang la droya soya mendua ses ngeso jagores yapo tragores mato duru droya gi nyanga dua dene ji lupe lelo gi nyambo kanes chikres.
ya ta du re de mo re ta ni bo zo te to ja te pe to ne la a zhen ji ya zhen ji da shu che du ya de wa
So the traditional explanation would be what was mentioned actually, which is considering the benefits of the practice, rebuilding our joyous effort. So it's a comprehension of the benefits.
ta yi na yo to te ka le ka to ne ni ka mi so ja ge to mo yo wa sang zo to no
But there's also a power that is known as the power of rest. So this connects with what you're saying of knowing when to sit, to sit on the side of the mountain, not push through it.
an du na ma ta ma mo le yong re je ne de chi wa do ge pa ka le li do sel ka len ki chen bo shu na ni ka mi so ja shi mo le yong re
And actually, if you look at the traditional explanations of calm abiding, when it talks about laxity and excitement being overwhelming or so subtle they're hard to define, it advises the practitioner to just take a rest to actually stop the session. You'll see this in many traditional texts.
den da te re ji le be le lo ti ge ta pe de ma to ba ji so na ta te nyo le chen bo wa
Yeah.
ngan zo do sa jo shon ji se de te chen ro ko ya re te pe de go ko so na
Yeah.
ta mi so ja ge den da chen ri lo ji me re
So Geshe-la's advice would be to know when to apply joyous effort and when to apply the power of rest, because the laziness of discouragement doesn't have to be a deal breaker. It only becomes a deal breaker if we push so hard that we just don't want to do the practice anymore at all, right? And then it's a real difficulty.
ka zong ma la ma ji wa te no ji re so lo ke cha shi so lo po ge ni pa te ni la cho lo su shu che wa chen ga yu che che i sa go ya re ngi ne
Yeah. But ultimately to say at a certain point, we do need effort, but that effort needs to be applied intelligently, and we need to have a self-awareness. We need to be like that Kadampa Geshe who spoke to himself, right? When the afflictions come strongly, I will apply the antidote strongly. When the afflictions are less flared, I will relax myself.
Because
the problem is that the laziness can become an overwhelming one that holds us up for a long time in our practice.
This is so good. Thank you so much. So basically, we need to understand the art of rest.
Yeah, and that's why it's one of the powers, the power of rest. So there's a canonical source for this, folks.
So when you say
so what happens is if we don't know how to apply the power of rest, we're pushing the body and mind to a point where due to exhaustion, their power can be lost completely. This is extremely dangerous.
That's what you mean by the deal breaker?
Yeah, Geshe-la was saying kind of like that it's like a fault which makes you unable to practice. So that's what I was translating as deal breaker, right?
Okay, so
So another thing that Geshe-la wanted to explain today, and he said that we were falling into a bit of like a debate. It wasn't a debate, I just wasn't understanding some of the nuances of the Svatantrika philosophy. So it probably took up 5 or 6 minutes, but we were actually going to talk about the conditions for calm abiding, and which we'll do next time. But there's a lot of value there as well to address this.
So when Geshe Sonam says very dangerous, he's meaning that the path completely stops for us. We are too unwell to... Is he talking about losing bodhicitta, complete losing? What's he meaning by very dangerous?
Nanso lelo tsapo chetrane dene nyanga tsapo chagire duslav. So nyanga tsapo sena kare nganso janshu gisem laya dapo chigires nganso
yeah disho la chen so tembo chite matona.
Yeah.
It's
this thing thinking, look, I'm not getting any progress in this practice, so there's not going to be any realization coming from this. And then once you start to think that, it's very easy to give up for a long time.
But he's talking about a state of exhaustion as well, right?
Can be, yes, you can see it as an exhaustion, a weariness.
This is so helpful. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Carol. Thanks. No, I'm glad it was helpful. And on that note, is there anyone else who has a question? I don't see any hands. Right. But Geshe-la was also saying that this laziness of discouragement, and this goes actually to low self-esteem, Carol, which is thinking that like, I am not smart enough, I am not good enough, that can also be an impediment. So it's there as well. Yeah. But he says mostly when people are, he says most people he thinks who study or have an interest of studying, they have something that like, I can understand at least a little bit of this, right? And you might have faith in the practice and even like meditation. But the problem is the fruits of meditation don't manifest easily, right? That might cause us to question ourselves. Right. So that's also something that can be in the mind.
힐레벨레로 스니 마시스테나 강가 가가나 kaleta tate chido machistambo akosara lelo cha memra te ziarta tena.
So Geshe is also saying there's, because now he's using a different term for one of these types of laziness. So now I'm confused. So there are
What's the
different
term?
terms for these lazinesses as well.
What is it? What's the new term?
Manyepelelo, right?
Ah,
Manyepelelo.
yeah.
Yeah, manyepelelo.
Daniela ni ba.
Okay.
Dalila nipelelo.
So tunchuzana bojizo so ya diga.
And that is more connected with a negative self-view.
Okay, so in this case, a possible solution is to choose easier practices.
Teninganso nyamlentes le lawa drogoribes. Nyotrediana, na chetu giomares, tandenso samata.
Togere ni kari yena che togere mali de ta chenbo to chenbo teso no powa te gar wa so.
No, it's not. It's to think that you can do it. It's to understand the value of this human body and intelligence and think I just need to be patient, but I can do it.
Pa de dawa te betanda ron yo piti se kari yena da togere se nduas.
Because Chandrakirti tells us that now is the time when we have the freedom this human rebirth provides to try to do the practice.
Lila
So,
jibu tomba so lila kon jawan ro yar junga de be khoi li chi rawas. Sel che zo ya mendis kaze yena ja chi du togere se nduas.
And of course, you know, our body, as we get older, there's going to be difficulties. So that's part of this experience of being human. But actually, if we work with the mind, even as we get older, there's no limit to our being able to improve the mind. The mind's capacity is endless.
well, that's a very hopeful view of getting older because I don't see that. My memory is certainly, but he's very positive.
Cool.
So this concept of thinking that you can do it, would we call that confidence? What's it called in Tibetan?
Tensurebes. Ngache tugires.
Ya ido.
Yeah, confidence.
Dice do powa do ta nipa yo ba chi tenda shi gu yare.
Courage is also how he's describing it. Tensu is confidence and courage. You need to have courage. That's super important.
Okay, what's the Tibetan word for courage?
How are you going to write these down? Poa.
Ya dice de merma powa mare dice do powa.
Ah,
Powa ngajanda wo chi powa.
pobar.
Powa mare powa.
So
So
so doing
Yeah,
so to
po-
increase
powa.
courage,
Huh?
to increase courage.
I do see some other people waiting for questions, Carol, just to let you know.
Yeah, sorry, last one. To increase courage.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
To increase courage is to look at the benefits again. We come back to the beginning. Yes?
No. It's related to thinking I have this, what Geshe preceded that with, I have this human rebirth with this human intelligence and capacity. That's the courage.
Pena manzongwa no lo yawas so lilin tunchuzona ne pa chimbo chi de yawas ta du no den da wo chi re tare.
So confidence in our capacity. Are you still with me?
Yeah, no, I'm writing things down.
Yeah. So that's why in Tantra, you're not allowed to have a negative view of your aggregates because they're a vehicle for enlightenment.
대도 다 아니 버리 소소소 도시선 오가 지는 거 말에 이용 거 말에 사들에.
It's similar to that. So saying that, you know, I can't do it, I'm not good, I don't have the things I need, that's an incorrect view ultimately.
So low self-esteem is an incorrect view. Totally. Thank you so much. This has been absolutely splendid.
Thanks,
Really,
Carol.
really
Thanks.
wonderful.
Yes, no. Thank you.
you.
I think others benefited from it too, for sure.
아 샤왕 얘기하 거 와서 몬치안 가서 간가 되리스.
But Geshe said for most of us, the most pernicious one is the laziness of engaging in meaningless activities.
다 대서 차 정보 주주래 지르지도가 나와. 레라고 주주래. 지레야.
Yeah. And so these are all different types of laziness that can afflict us. So Karina, you've been waiting for a while, so let's take your question. Go ahead. I don't hear you though.
다 찐디 요는 감각 같아요. 대화.
Karina, you have to turn off your mic. You have to turn on your mic, sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, Karina. I think you're having a technical difficulty because we can't hear you at all. So we'll have to get to you next time.
Could Dave unmute her?
Unless you type it to Dave. Yeah, that would be another option.
No, can Dave unmute her?
I think she's frozen.
No, we don't
He
seem to
can
be able to
request her to
her.
unmute herself, but he can't unmute her for her. Like
Correct.
you can send
No.
her a little message that says unmute yourself.
Yeah.
No, we can unmute her, but we are not able to actually.
Oh, you're not, but you can. Oh, that's interesting.
I can
But,
You guys have so
maybe-
much power.
Maybe you can type the question in the chat, Karina. Would that be possible? Oh, now she looks frozen.
I don't even see her body moving, so we'll have to.
Wait,
pay
I
for
don't
it.
want to know.
So Geshe said maybe it's a good time to end the class if there's, because I think everyone's asked their question. And thank you for the questions, by the way. It always makes the class more fun.
Oh yeah,
So Geshe said we'll close it here, everybody. So have a wonderful rest of your day, and if you're of a mind to, we'll be back next Sunday. Take